Hey guys, so my camera died in my last video, so I'm just going to end up doing a part 3 of my eyeshadow palette collection. So I'm going to start off with the Maybelline eyeshadow quad. This one is in Emerald Smokes. Now, I used to use this palette a lot more than I do now. However, I loved it because of the green shadows in here. I really like a lot of green eyeshadow palettes because my eyes are hazel, so they kind of bring out the green in my eyes. This one is so old now that I think at this point I would just get a new one. But it is a really pretty eyeshadow quad. The next one I have to mention from Maybelline, these are the Blushed Nudes palette. Now, I love the color story in this palette. Like, it is one of the most beautiful color stories to me. However, the performance of these shadows are just not it. Now, there are some shadows that really do look nice. Like, I really like the kind of more rose gold shades in here. Like, this one is a beautiful rose gold pink shade. And then this one is just more like a rose gold, a little bit more on the gold side. So for those colors, those are nice. And then these three over here work pretty well. However, this one is super light. However, I have to say, one of the things I really love with this palette, again, because I really like greens. Now these are more like grayish greens, kind of like sage type shades. But I have to say, I was just disappointed in this because I want this to show up and then it would just disappear on my eyelids. I could barely get any color pigment off of that one. So this was kind of disappointing. I still want to use this because of the pink tones. I think I'll try to create some more looks. But if you can't see like just how much I've tried to dig into this green shadow to make it work, I was just very disappointed with that shadow. As well as the one right under it. It was just not the best performance-wise. I'm just disappointed in these shades. Other than that, the palette is really nice. So it's okay, but just kind of disappointing. The next palettes I want to mention to you are the Essence ones. So I got this Salute Paris. I saw it at CVS and I just thought it was so pretty. I loved mauve tones at the time. I still like mauve tones, but I really loved them at the time. However, this palette is not the best performance-wise. So if you guys see it, you could try it for yourselves, but I just feel like it's a little bit chalky and a little bit hard to work with. But the shades are really beautiful. The next palette I have to mention is the Essence Spice Up Your Life. Now, this one was like really good. I actually love this palette. You know, it's not the best compared to some other palettes. However, the colors in here look amazing. I get compliments when I wear this palette, especially around the fall season, which is perfect for. So I love these shades. I find the greens in here really pretty, like maple and pretty thyme. I love the gold shade in here. They have some beautiful red and bronzy shades. So this is a nice palette, and I love the pumpkin spice shade. So I actually really like this palette. I don't reach for it a lot. However, I do want to create some looks for fall season. Next palettes I have to mention with you guys, these are my e.l.f. palettes. So I have the e.l.f. Mad for Matte palette. This one is really nice. It's a really basic palette, honestly. I like to use this with shimmer palettes in conjunction with them. So like the Wet n Wild Walking on Eggshells palette, I would pair it with this one. So this is really nice for pairing palettes. It's okay by itself. It's not my favorite, but it's nice and it does the job. So if you're looking for like a cheaper matte palette, this is pretty good. The next palette I have is this e.l.f. Rose Gold palette. Now this one I just thought was so stunning. I barely reach for this one, to be honest with you guys, but it is really pretty for the fall season. I love this orange shade, and then this sunset pinky shade is beautiful. and also the gold and the green. So this palette I will use more for the fall season, and it is really nice, and it's in Rose Gold Sunset. The next palette I have to mention with you guys, this is one of my least favorite palettes. This is the LA Colors 16 color eyeshadow palette. Now, I don't know what I was thinking when I got it. Honestly, it's just like a cheaper palette, so it's not that good. The shade right here is really nice. I like the mermaid kind of colors in here, like this, what is it? Like this shade right here is really pretty too. It's a nice blue, and then this is like a nice turquoise shade. So those are my favorite shades in the palette. However, once I put them on, they kind of disappear on my eyelids right after, so I just don't think it's that good. And I don't love that there's kind of like more metallic-y shimmers, which I'm not a huge fan of. Next, moving on to the CoverGirl True Naked. This is the shade Goldens. I got this palette again because my eyes are hazel, so I love those like olivey green tones. I find them to be very, very flattering. So that's why I got it. And look how beautiful these are. They're more brownish green. So I like them, but they're not super green. They kind of look like a hazel kind of olive toned palette. So I like this palette. I don't reach for it a lot because I have a lot of palettes, but it is a really pretty palette. The next palette I have is the Makeup Revolution palette. This one is it's called the I Love Revolution in Chocolate Orange. Now, I just love like these orange palettes. I didn't used to. However, now I can't get enough of them. So I like that it has these pretty orange shades in here, which is what really attracted me to it. I don't reach for it a lot. However, during the fall season, these are the tones that I love to reach for. Next palette I have to mention, this one is the Hard Candy one. This is the Smoke Out palette. I love this. I got it for St. Patrick's Day looks. These greens are stunning. I love the shimmer in here. I know it's not safe for the eyelid area, but I still use it on my eyelids. So I take the chance, but it's really pretty colors in here. I love green shadows again, so this is a must for me, especially during St. Patrick's Day. Okay, moving on to, I'll go on to ColourPop. All right, so I have these old palettes. This one is Belle of the Ball. This one is super old, but I want to show you guys. I love this because it gives me like princess vibes. It reminds me of like the medieval times, and like with the dusty pinks and like the hot pink in here. So that's why I got it, and I really liked these like mauvey dusty pinks at that time, so I don't reach for it a whole lot. However, my looks are very pretty when I do use this palette, so it's a nice one. The next one I have to mention is the Blow Me Away palette. So this one is kind of like the opposite vibes. Instead of like a bright or like a dusty pink, it's more like bright corals in here, and kind of some peachy colors. So I really think this color is nice. And one thing about this palette, and I have to say it's very, very pigmented. So for me, on my skin tone, it doesn't look the best. However, I can imagine it looking really beautiful on people with a different skin tone than me, to be honest. I'm just a little bit pale for this palette, but these shades are really stunning, so I really like this one. Next one that I wear, probably one of the most out of those type of palettes, is Low Key. Now this palette is a really beautiful fall palette. I would get compliments when I wore this one. I love the tones in here. So these come across on my skin tone. They come out pretty orange looking, to be honest, because I'm really, really pale. But These shades are beautiful. They kind of give me like a fiery eyeshadow look when I wear them. I'll show you. I don't know, like on my skin tone, it kind of comes off more like a fire kind of shades, but they're really stunning. So I love this one. The next palette I have to mention with you guys is the Cute AF by ColourPop. I was obsessed with the Natasha Denona Sunset palette when I got this. So I had to get this one because I could not afford the Natasha Denona Sunset palette. However, this palette is really, really beautiful. I don't reach for it a whole lot, but when I do, I really love this bright yellow shade. It's one of my favorites in here, and they didn't have a lot of yellow eyeshadows at that time, so that's why I got this palette for those yellow shades. This one looks like an art class painting kind of yellow shade. It reminds me of watercolor. Not the best formula. However, the shimmers in here are stunning. I also love this orangey shade, and then this reddish shade is also really beautiful. So it's a good palette. It's not the best, but I just have to say my looks that I use when in this palette are actually really stunning. So it's a good one. Now my favorite of ColourPop palette that I own, I don't own any of the new ones, so, but this palette, Femme Rosa, is so pretty. I love this palette. It reminds me of the Naked Cherry palette. It has a lot of similar tones in here. I think it almost offers a little bit more unique tones as well with the purpley shades in this palette. But this palette is stunning. Anytime I wear this, I get compliments on it. And I find that these red tones look really beautiful against hazel eyes. They'd obviously look even more stunning on green eyes, but my eyes are hazel, so these type of shades are really flattering. Moving on, I'm going to show you guys, I think I missed BH Cosmetics palette. This is the Hanging in Hawaii palette. I don't remember if I went over this last time, but the colors in this are beautiful. I wear this palette a lot during the summer. This pineapple shade is one of my favorites. Obviously, all these shimmers are beautiful. And then I love this palette for really fun, like more bold crease looks with hibiscus, paradise. I love to mix them. And then also with this shade. And then if I want a more simple shade, they have these beautiful brown tones. I just love this palette. It's so unique. It's so pretty. And it's a nice warm tone neutral palette. So this is a really good one as well. Okay. Moving on. Okay, this palette, so this is the Kat Von D Shade and Light Eye Palette. I love this palette. So, I know Kat Von D has a lot of shade. However, I have to say it, her palette is stunning. It really is. This is a really good palette. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. This is exactly what got me into matte, eye looks. So before I didn't used to like matte eyeshadow because I felt like it didn't really do a lot for me. I felt like it made my eyes look dull. Now I love matte eyeshadow looks because of this palette. I started wearing this one when I was in the musical and we had to wear matte eye looks. And I just fell in love with matte eyeshadows. And this formula is stunning for that. These shades really look amazing, so this is a really good palette. Okay, moving on. Speaking of matte eyeshadows, I have two Lorac Pro palettes. I have the Lorac Pro. This is the original one. I love this one again as well. Look how used this is. I love this palette. It's the perfect daytime palette and nighttime palette. It's like the perfect day to nighttime palette. So this one's a really good one as well. I love the mattes in here. My favorite time to wear this palette, besides every day, which I do wear this a lot from a day-to-day basis look, I also love to wear it at night. So whenever I go out and I want a smoky look, this is what I reach for. This is my favorite shade in the palette, Espresso. and I create very smoky eye looks with this palette. I also love to use these for liners, for super dark crease looks. Perfect palette for that. These light shades are also beautiful. Another two of my favorite are Nude and Champagne. I love to wear this on as an inner corner highlight. I'll even use just the white as an inner corner highlight. This shimmers down here, Golds, is a very beautiful bronzy gold. And then Pewter is also really pretty. I love to mix this with Verve shade from the Naked 2. I'm pretty sure I got that idea from this girl Taylor on YouTube. She did like a really beautiful look with Pewter and the Naked 2 shade Verve. So this is a really good palette. Another palette I've been reaching for a lot more recently, since I got this more recently, is the Lorac Pro 2 palette. Let me show you guys this one as well. So these shades are also beautiful. I love to reach for Nectar. This is my favorite shade in the palette, but also this rose shade is beautiful. It's got these darker shades, more silver tone looks. So if you like cooler tone looks, this is a really great palette as well. But my favorite way to use this palette is just use Nectar all over the crease and use this shade Buff all over the lid for a nice neutral look. Moving on, the next Lorac palette I have to mention with you guys is Lorac Unzipped. This is the most beautiful rose gold palette I've seen in my life. So beautiful. I think it's better than the Naked 3. These shades are the most beautiful rose gold shades, so that's one thing I really love with this palette. I don't reach for it a whole lot. However, when I do, these are beautiful rose gold shades. I actually find the formula at first, I like this formula more than the Pro. Now I like the Lorac Pro one a lot, and I find it has a lot more variety. However, when I was really into rose gold shades, this one was it. Finally, I have the Malibu palette from Lorac. This is another really cute palette. I really love this, you guys. These shades in here are really cute. I love them. Perfect summer palette. I don't reach for this a whole lot. However, I thought it was really cute. I did just get it this year, so it's a nice palette. Moving on to my Tarte palette. So I have a couple different options of Tarte. I have the Tarte Tartelette palette. This is nice. It's not my favorite palette, but it's nice. So I like to reach for this whenever I want a matte purple smoky eye look. That's when I really reach for this. I do sometimes use it for an all over matte look. I have to be careful with it because it can look muddy very quick. However, the purple shades in here are stunning. And then I really like the smoky, deeper shades in this palette as well. This is the next palette I have. So this is the Tarte Tartelette Toasted palette. I used to wear this one all the time. I found the coppers in here so pretty. This was my favorite warm tone palette for a little bit. I still really like these shades in here. They're very warm toned. But specifically like the Simmer shade's very beautiful. The Flame shade is one of my favorite coppery tone shades. Sunset's pretty. And then the shade Candle is also really pretty. I like to use this as an inner corner highlight. I have to say this palette, you have to be careful with this shade because it gets everywhere. It's very crumbly. But other than that, this palette is really stunning. Okay, this is the next palette I have to mention with you guys. This is the Tarte Tartelette in Bloom palette. This is another stunning palette. This is my most used and loved Tartelette palette. I use this one pretty much almost every day at certain times when I do decide to use it. I love these shades. Perfect for matte, all over matte eyeshadow looks. This one, I believe I would use on my wedding day, to be honest with you guys. The formula in here is so good, and the color story in here is so beautiful. So this is another favorite of mine. And then we have the Tarte Clay Play palette. This is another nice palette. I don't reach for this one as much, however, it is a nice palette. I really like that the shades, they have like a lot of matte shades in here, which is really nice. And they have these beautiful contour kind of shades. So if you like a palette with that, this one is good for that. I don't reach for this one as much. However, this is really nice for work. It's nice for school, and it is a very easy palette to use. So I do like it. Next, I have to mention, so Too Faced, I have the Too Faced Cocoa Contour palette. This one, I reach for more than the Tarte, than that other Tarte palette, to be honest with you guys. Plus, I love this brush in here. However, these shades in here are amazing. I love the medium cocoa is a contour shade. I honestly love to mix it with the dark cocoa, but sometimes this one actually looks more natural. Let's see. This Pop of Light is a beautiful shimmery eye look because it has little sparkles in here, and then it has this white shade right here. So sometimes I use this palette not only for contour, but actually for eyeshadow as well. It's like the perfect all year palette for me, and then if I use it for eyeshadow, perfect during the summertime. Next palettes I have to mention, so I have the Glitter Bomb by Too Faced. I have mixed feelings about this palette, to be honest with you guys. The shimmers in here are nice, however, these glittery, well, they're kind of like glitter shimmer shades, because these glitters aren't like glitter, so that's almost nice in a way because I feel like they're a lot safer for your eyes. I don't reach for this one like ever, however, I think it would be really nice for holiday looks. I do want to start to mix my palettes, so maybe if I mix this with the Too Faced palette, like the chocolate bar, this one will look really nice. And I do use the NYX glitter glue when I use this palette. The next one I have to mention is the Too Faced chocolate bar palette. I used to hate this palette. I actually bought it and I thought it was going to look so nice. And then I realized on my eye color, these shades don't look the best. They kind of made my eyes just look muddy, and didn't make my eye look stand out or anything. However, I actually fell back in love with this palette. I have to say the best shades in here are the mattes to me. So I find what really stands out are all these beautiful matte brown shades. This one, Salted Caramel, is my favorite. However, this Milk Chocolate I love to use. And I also like the Semi-Sweet. So I have been getting into this palette more. I think the shimmers are a little bit dark, and kind of just muted and kind of dull looking, to be honest. However, besides like these two or these three, these are really nice. But the rest of the shimmers are a little bit dull. However, I do want to get into this palette a little bit more because it's a very natural looking palette, minus some of the shimmer shades. Finally, my favorite Too Faced palette of all time is the Too Faced Sweet Peach palette. I do not own the new natural looking one, like the Born This Way one, but this one is stunning. I love this palette. It's like my perfect springtime palette. I find that it looks also so stunning on my eyes. So that's another thing I love with this palette. I think with my skin tone and my eye color, that is another reason why this palette just stands out so much to me. I have been using the shimmer shades more. However, this Nectar shade is one of my favorites. I love to kind of do a little bit of a rainbow look here, and I use the Nectar with Candy Peach and Just Peachy, and then I use these shades like Summer Yum, Puree, and this darker shade in the crease. And that's like my favorite look to use with the palette. but there's so much you can do with it, and it offers a lot of great options. Finally, okay, you guys, so I'm going to go into my Naked palettes. I have so many of these, to be honest with you guys. So start off with the Naked 3. This one was honestly a little bit of a disappointment for me, if I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. The colors are really pretty in here, honestly, but I find that the formula is so hard pressed in this particular Naked palette that it's hard to work with. However, the more I use it, the more I do like it. It's just harder to work with the shimmers because they're so hard pressed, especially this one right here. So I like it. It's not like a love for me, but I want to reach for it more, especially since it looks really nice with more greenish eye colors. Okay, the Naked Smoky. This palette was really disappointing for me, honestly. I don't know what I expected out of it, though. It kind of gives you everything just by looking at the color story right here. It's just not really me anymore. I just find this is so cool tone. I know they say the Naked 2 one is, but no, it's this one that's like super cool tone and icy and kind of hard to work with. So I'm not a huge fan of it. Plus it's so dark. Like these shades are just a little bit too dark for my taste. The matte shades are nice, and I actually love the brush. The brush I use more than anything in this palette. And the packaging is so stunning, but the palette itself was kind of not my favorite. Okay, so the rest of the Naked palettes I really ended up loving. So I'll show you guys. I have the Naked Honey. This turned out to be one of my favorites, honestly. So it's kind of like these yellow gold tone shades. They're like kind of mustardy. These are so pretty. And I love to use this with my eye color. I think it goes really nice. So this is a really like must-have for me. This is one of my favorites of theirs that I've tried. My favorite shades are just the golden and honey shade. But I also kind of love this amber shade as well. It actually kind of reminds me of the Naked Original palette if they were to amp it up more and have more like yellow tone golds rather than just golds. Next palette I have to mention with you guys is the Naked Cherry palette. So I got this palette more recently. However, some of the shades in here are really beautiful. I don't love that it's also monochromatic in a way because I just prefer a little bit more variety usually. However, these shades are really pretty. I think the standout shades for me are the ones that are a little bit less reddish pink tone, however. So my favorite shade in this is Ambitious. It reminds me of like the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk kind of eyeshadow, so which I don't have but I want, and this kind of gives me the same type of vibe. It's really beautiful. I love to use this with my eye color. I find it really makes it stand out, so that's why I love this palette. I have two other Naked palettes I really want to mention to you guys that are my absolute favorites. The Naked OG. This one is one of their best ones, honestly. I hate that they discontinued this one because I know eventually I'm going to want it again. And these colors are just what I reach for. These golds are beautiful. And then the shade right here, Virgin and Sin, are like my two other favorites. However, I have been even getting into the Toasted and Hustle shade recently. So this palette is really beautiful as well. And I'm really sad they discontinued it. I don't think that the Reloaded comes close to look like the color story, having it as beautiful. So that's just my opinion. However, that's a really good palette. Naked 2, you guys, this is my favorite palette in the Naked series of all time. So I have two of them. Once I found out they were discontinuing it, I had to get another one. So this palette I've had since, I want to say, right after high school, since about 2014. I love this palette. I'm just obsessed. Perfect. This shade right here, Verb, is my literal favorite shade of all time. However, I've more recently been getting into more gold shades, so I've really been liking this one And then these shades right here are so beautiful for the fall. Two favorites. And then I also really love this shade. Sometimes I even like to put teas all over the lid. Okay, I'm going to stop talking about it because it's my favorite all-time palette. Now the newer one, if you want to see, it looks a lot prettier. So I'm just going to show you guys the brand new one as well. This palette is stunning. I find that any look I could use out of it looks absolutely beautiful. I find that this palette makes, it almost, how I would describe it is, it doesn't make your eye look as beautiful, but it makes you look beautiful. And that's what I love with this palette. The next one I have to mention to you guys is the UD Born to Run, Urban Decay Born to Run. This one is stunning as well. I don't reach for it as much. I had to get this palette though, you guys. These oranges are so beautiful, which is one thing I really love about it. I love that these hot pinks for like, I'm not a huge fan of these colors, however, for the summer, that's why I got those. These greens are my favorite, like especially the greenish blue and then the green right here. So pretty. I love this palette. I just don't reach for it a whole lot. And then finally, you guys, I'm going to go into my ABH palette. So we have ABH Modern Renaissance. This one's a classic. Let me see it. The tones in here are kind of unique. It kind of gives me like modern, well, I guess it gives me Renaissance vibes. So that's one thing I really like about it. It's a very berry tone palette. I used to reach for just these purples. However, I've been getting more into the oranges recently too. And then the reddish pinky tones in here are the most unique, I feel like, in the palette. So those are the other colors I really like. It's not my favorite one. However, it is a good palette. Next one I have to mention with you guys is the Subculture. This is like the most controversial palette of all time, but I really love it. It is hard to work with. I will say that. It is one of the hardest palettes to work with, especially with the shade Axis. However, the reason why I got this palette was for this green shade right here. This green, and then these like teal green, and then this green right here, and that one. So that is the main reason why I got the palette. I really love green tones. I also like mustardy tones. And then I also really love this bronze color. So this palette kind of gives me Harry Potter vibes with like the different houses. That's kind of what it reminds me of. But this palette is so stunning. And anytime I want to use a green look or kind of more like a mustardy look, I reach for this palette because it's so beautiful. And then finally, I have two more palettes to share with you guys. I have the Sultry by ABH. This is like actually my favorite palette, like next to the Morphe Madison Beer, the Naked 2, Naked Original, and then Carly Bible palette. This is like my favorite. The shades in here are stunning. I find that any eye look I do out of this usually comes out so glam and beautiful. I do have to say, because a lot of people say it's cool tone, I don't think it looks too cool toned except for the mattes. I think the mattes are like a little bit cool toned. However, the rest of the palette is truly stunning. These shimmers are so amazing. I love these. And it gives me kind of like the Madison Morphe, or what is it, the Madison Beer vibes. So I love this one. And then I also have the Carly Bible. I got this one more recently as well. And the shades in here are so beautiful. This is my other favorite palette of all time. So I love this palette as well. I just love the shimmers. This purple shade right here called OA. Is it OA? Yes, that one is stunning. It's my favorite shade in the palette. But again, this palette gives me like ethereal fairy vibes, which is another reason why I love it. And the shades in here are so beautiful. I love the eye looks that I get out of this palette, and I get compliments when I wear this. So this is another one of my favorites. All right, you guys, that is my eyeshadow palette. collection. Thank you so much for watching and hope you guys have a great day.